Romania, a country on the borderline of Middle and East Europe. By rail, we travel from the capital Bucharest to the heart of the country. Traveling through Romania is like traveling through time. At places where the rails cut through the country, we see pictures that in the West belong in the past. In some old inner towns, it also seems as if time is standing still. It's a country full of history. We'll visit the centers of Bucharest and Brașov. With their little bricks and old-fashioned houses, these cities provide for a romantic scenery. We start in Bucharest. This metropolis is situated about 100 kilometers from the Danube. It is the beating heart of the country. To build this enormous palace, they had to demolish 1/5 of the historic town center. It was dictator Ceausescu's showpiece. They started building it in 1984. 25,000 laborers worked on it, but they never finished it, since the dictator was deposed in 1989. Now it is empty and inaccessible for the public. The new town looks totally different. In 40 years of communism, they put a lot of new buildings there. The fall of communism in Romania began at the square of the revolution. Since the overthrow of the dictator, they pay much more attention to the historic buildings of the city. Fortunately, a lot of these buildings are still standing. It's a delight to walk about the old quarters. About a century ago, the city took a cue from Paris and copied the architecture of the French capital on a large scale. Nevertheless, the influence of the East is also recognizable in the city. This, for example, is a Russian church from 1905, built on the finances of the Tsarist royal house in Moscow. Since the revolution of '89, they're obviously working on the facelift of Bucharest. They're fixing the storefronts, and the streets receive more and more color by means of new stores and street lighting that actually works. Although some think this process is going too slow, the Romanians themselves are still very happy to be delivered from the yoke of Ceausescu. From the Gare du Nord, we leave crowded Bucharest. It's practically always crowded at this stately station, which is also the main station of the city. Gare du Nord is the place of departure for all Romanians traveling north. CFR is the National Railway Company. This abbreviation stands for Romanian Iron Railway. The railway network of the CFR is fairly extensive and inexpensive. For that reason, the train is a popular conveyance in Romania. It's rather difficult to buy a ticket here. Each destination has its own ticket window, and it requires some searching to find the right one. At small stations, they often have only one ticket window, so you won't have that problem there. In Romania, a ticket is always one way, for return tickets don't exist here. Ready to take off. They mark the red carriage with the letter R, which means we find ourselves in an inner city train. We leave Bucharest behind us and are on our way to Ploiești, about 60 kilometers north of the capital. Straight after the outskirts of Bucharest, the extensive country begins. We arrive in Ploiești within an hour. This is an important city in Romania because here they extract petroleum. Since World War II, the city has also extended itself industrially. We're on our way, however, to the much nicer Sinaia, situated 50 kilometers further on. The flat gray country round about Ploiești slowly makes room for more attractive green. Sinaia is situated in the mountains at a height of 900 meters. For years, this has been a popular place, especially amongst tourists. In former days, the rich inhabitants of the city used to visit this place to escape the pressures of the city. The beautiful little station is hidden behind the green mountains. A little further on, we find the city. The name Sinaia is derived from the Israeli mountain Sinai. A 17th century nobleman had once been there and gave the name to a cloister he had founded here. For centuries, Sanaia was an insignificant village. During the last century, things changed and Sanaia became a pleasant country seat. The Romanian royal family even made the cloister their country house. The rich friends of the family traveled after them and built numberless country houses in Sanaia. Nowadays, Sanaia is a crowded place, visited by lots of tourists. The surroundings are ideal for outdoor sports like skiing and hiking. For the great part, the population is depending on these tourists. The sale of souvenirs and the presence of the casino provide the village for good earnings. The attraction of Sanaia is hidden in the mountains. It is the 19th century Peles Palace, one of the most luxurious buildings in Romania. The palace was built by King Carol I. Originally, Carol came from Germany. To feel at home, he instructed an Austrian architect to build his country house in a German style. Peles is also the name of the little river flowing through the surrounding park. For a countryside, this building has a lot of rooms, no less than 160. It has a Venetian hall, a Turkish room, and a Moorish hall. Besides the Renaissance style, you'll also find the Baroque and the Rococo style here as well. They have hung practically every wall with wood and placed many pictures here, among which a number of Rembrandt imitations. Of course, dictator Ceausescu wanted to stay here too, but he didn't have the courage to sleep here, being afraid of the moldy wood that would affect his health. Back to the almost 100 years old station of Sanaia. It is situated on the Prahova River, east of the village. We get in and continue our journey. We leave the monumental little station and are on our way back through the Carpathians. We travel right across the mountain range to Brazov, a trip of 100 kilometers. Slowly we are leaving the southern Carpathians and arriving on the Transylvanian plateau. Transylvania is the central part of Romania, situated on a height of 300 to 800 meters above sea level. Extensive landed properties and solitary woods succeed each other. The station of Brasov was built during the Ceausescu administration. In most cases, this means dull and without frills. Even the weather seems to match the environs. The city itself is totally different. The Germans founded Brasov in the Middle Ages. In 1918, it finally became part of Romania. The city has many sights, among which this pointed St. Nicholas Church with its 4 steeples. They built the church in 1495 as part of one of the first Romanian schools. At first, the church only had 1 steeple, but a few years later they built 3 more. The St. Nicholas Church was the cultural and spiritual center for a very large area. Here they wrote and later printed books. The wall paintings especially are beautiful. Inside you'll find a few beautiful graves. After 400 years, they still conduct Orthodox services here. Close to the Nicholas Church, you'll find a totally different church. It is the Black Church, so called because it was partially scorched after a fire in 1689. They worked for almost a century on this 90 meters high church, one of the biggest churches between Vienna and Istanbul. Brasov is a city with a rich past, and you can see it. Besides the churches we've already mentioned, you'll find colorful streets and beautiful squares here. The Hungarian, Turkish, German, and Austrian influences are found in the many architectural styles. Foreign intruders have destroyed the city many times. In 1421, first the Turks, and 250 years later, the Austrians, set the city on fire. Later on, the communists renamed Brasov Orazul Stalin, that is, City of Stalin. But now it's called Brasov again, and since the revolution of 1989, Brasov flourishes as never before. It's time to leave Brasov again and to continue our journey. Slowly, the blue locomotive of the CFR moves off the train. We travel further north to the country village called Vatra Dornai. We travel through the beautiful province of Moldavia. The train takes us along the foothills of the Carpathians. The gray skies and the green landscape are beautiful. After a trip of a couple of hours, we arrive in Vatra Durnai, a typical Romanian country village. This town is more crowded than most of the other villages. That is because the Romanians come here for the health resort. Vatra Durnai is situated in beautiful surroundings. In this neighborhood, the Dorna River is central because of its importance for both the farmers and the health resort. The rural population, for the most part, doesn't seem to notice the tourists. Since the fall of communism, life hasn't improved much for them. The fuel prices are high, and there's a lack of machine parts. Still, the farmers are hoping for better times, and you can always get a friendly smile. It seems as if the geese want to show us the way to our next destination. Nearby Vatra Durnai is one of the most beautiful cloisters of Romania, the Moldovita. This cloister dates from 1532. The special attraction of the cloister are the many pictures outside the building. The pictures represent the Last Judgment and the siege of Constantinople in 626. Although they're exposed to the open air for more than 400 years, the condition of the frescoes is still fairly good. With financial help, UNESCO keeps this cloister in passable condition. With this visit to the Bible of the open air, we've come to the end of our journey through the fascinating country of Romania. Next week, Railway travels through Holland. From the towns of Hoorn and Amsterdam, the train will take us to The Hague. We'll visit Madurodam, where the biggest model railway in the world is kept. So don't miss next week's Railway.